Hello everyone, welcome back to our class, and this time we're going to discuss about the psychosocial theory or the post-Freudian theory. So actually this is a continuation of the theory of Freud, wherein nakafocus na siya sa psychosocial factors no in the influence to personality of a human person, and also yun nga, post-Freudian. So yun, let's try to learn more about the theory of Erik Erikson. So the ego in post-Freudian theory is very important, no? And there are elements that could depict, no, one's ego. We have body ego, ego ideal, and ego identity. So one of the main elements of Erikson's theory is it's the development of the ego identity. So when we say ego identity, this is the conscious sense of self that a person developed through social interaction. So after we have experienced the psychosexual stages, then yung social interaction naman or influence ay makaka-influence din or makaka-apekto din sa personality natin. So, may aspects din yung ego. Again, we have body ego, ego ideal, and ego identity. Kindly please take note of this interrelated aspects of the ego. To reiterate lang, society's influence is important, no? As the ego emerges from and is largely shaped by culture. So, as a person moves into the different stages of his development, no, may mga iba't ibang mga conflicts na ma-experience yung person, whether makaka-develop siya ng virtue or ng vice. And another thing to consider in the theory of Erikson is the epigenetic principle. This is when the ego grows as our organs do. So, hindi po pwede na mauuna yung isang stage. There is this proper sequence where things happen or a person experiences. So, hindi pwede na mauna yung isang stage. Kailangan may proper order at hierarchy yung mga bagay-bagay. No? So, may structure talaga siya. Later on, ipapakita ko yung mga iba't ibang stages under the theory of Erikson. Basic points of the stage approach. Growth follows epigenetic principle. Like what I've mentioned, there is a structure that is being followed. Hindi lang nauuna yung isang stage as opposed to another. Every stage has an interaction of opposites. So may mga conflicts then later on like trust versus mistrust, no? Ganon, which will allow the person to either develop this virtue or this vice pag hindi na resolution or hindi siya na resolve ng maayos. It may produce ego strength, no? Para siyang make it or break it every stage or phase. Pag hindi na resolve yung conflict na yon, makaka-develop siya ng maladaptive behavior. And pag na-resolve naman yung conflict na yon during those particular stages, makaka-develop siya ng ego strength. So too little strength at one stage results in core psychopathology at a later stage. So, apektado pa rin no, ng isang particular stage yung development ng isang person on his future stages or on the latter stages. Stages are also biological in nature. It can be inherited as well. Part na rin yun sa personality natin. No? When we are young, part of being unique as well. So, may aspect din yun na the way we deal with these conflicts perhaps are rooted to our biological uh, inherited traits. Okay, next is earlier stages do not cause later personality development. So take note of that one. And from adolescence on, personality development involves identity crisis. So dito rin na-developed or na-conceptualize yung term na identity crisis. So, yun. So it starts from adolescence, no? Wherein sometimes meron tayong na-experience na conflict or perhaps hindi natin masyado na-identify yung sarili natin na clear. May mga unresolved tayo ng mga conflicts within ourselves. Now, let's proceed to the stages of psychosocial development. So, as a person progresses, no, from adolescence up to old age, ito yung mga nangyayari sa kanya. Ito yung mga crisis na kailangan ma-face ng isang person. Again, hindi pwede na pupunta sa isang stage yung isang person habang hindi pa niya na-experience yung isang stage. So, kailangan talaga stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, stage 5, up until sa last stage. So I will discuss it thoroughly. First is through infancy, no? Basic trust versus mistrust. Pag na-resolve ito, makaka-develop ng virtue ng hope yung isang bata. No? This is sometimes happened kapag during the mother-child or the parental um, influence or behavior, no, sa isang baby. Minsan hindi nagkakaroon ng sapat na attention. That's why hindi nabibigyan ng, alam niyo yun, yung hope yung isang person. So kapag na-resolve naman to, kapag walang trust issues yung baby or yung infant, no, magkakaroon siya ng hope paglaki niya. And in culmination in old age, like yung na-mention kanina, no, may factor in siya or nakaka-apekto siya sa personality mo kapag tumanda ka na. So, appreciation of interdependence and relatedness. So, mas magkakaroon ka ng sense of self, no? At makaka-relate ka sa ibang tao ng maayos. Early childhood naman is the conflict here is autonomy versus shame, no? This happens when a person can make decisions or not, or can be more less confident, no? Perhaps the resolution or virtue that can develop when this conflict is successfully um, when successfully um, treated, or kapag naayos siya or na-resolve siya, will be will. When in the old age, kapag tumanda na yung isang person, no, the person more likely accept the cycle of life from integration to disintegration. Mas madali na niyang ma-accept yung bagay-bagay, yung mga proseso ng life, yung reality ng life, both the positive and the negative aspects of life. No? So, hindi na siya makaka-develop pa ng anxiety or ng trouble because, yun nga, maganda kasi na nag-develop din yung virtue of will. Next is the play age. Dito naman yung influence ng playmates natin, no? So, the conflict here is initiative versus guilt. So, the resolution or the virtue that can be developed is purpose. So, yeah. So, kapag na-resolve itong conflict na to, initiative versus guilt, so magkakaroon siya ng virtue or madedevelop yung virtue ng purpose. So, in old age, kapag tumanda na yung person, the person will develop yung humor, personality, empathy, and resilience. Okay? So, it will transpire really kapag tumatanda yung person, ma-incorporate ito sa personality traits niya. 'Di ba? Ang ganda. Next is school age. Ito naman, on the formative school years of the person, 6 to 12 years old, the basic conflict here is industry versus inferiority, no? The resolution or the virtue that can be developed here is competence, no? Once the person has be able to resolve, no, this conflict, the person can develop humility, acceptance of the course of one's life, and unfulfilled hopes. So, mas madedevelop niya yung pagiging down-to-earth personality trait, no? At madali niyang makukuha at matatanggap yung mga nangyayari sa mga life or sa mga bagay-bagay. Adolescence naman is, during this phase, is the conflict that is being experienced is identity versus confusion. And the resolution or virtue that can be developed once this is acceptable, or once this is properly resolved, is fidelity. Fidelity, di ba, ibig sabihin loyalty, di ba? So, yun pala yung Wi-Fi, no? Wireless fidelity. Just remember yun. Wireless fidelity, ibig sabihin ng Wi-Fi. Alright, so, kapag tumanda na yung isang person, makaka-develop siya ng sense of complexity of life, or there is a merging of sensory, logical, and aesthetic perception sa mga bagay-bagay. So, most probably, nagkakaroon siya ng tingin or view about life na hindi lang to basic, no, may mga iba't ibang factors or mga iba't ibang mga versions, or sometimes, no, mas nagiging malawak yung pagtingin niya sa buhay. Next is early adulthood. Next, ang conflict naman dito is intimacy versus isolation. The resolution or virtue once this is accomplished or once this is resolved is love. 'Di ba? So, dito naman yung phase na unang nagmamahal or nagkaka-develop tayo ng feelings towards other people, no? Hindi yung person within our family or you know, other people, no, wherein we developed this type of love, perhaps passionate or erotic love. Once this is developed, this virtue, or this is properly resolved, the conflict, the person in his culminated old age will have the sense of complexity in relationships, will value the tenderness and loving freely. So mas magiging mature siya in terms of relationships, no? Mas maiintindihan niya yung pagmamahal, no? Ano yung tamang way of loving, and hindi yung toxic sa mga relationships. Next is in adulthood, dito na papasok yung generativity versus stagnation. This is to generate or to stagnate or remain on that period. So kapag na-resolve tong conflict na to, makaka-develop yung person ng virtue of care, no, this is more of caring for others and agape and empathy and concern. So kapag properly na execute or kapag properly na resolve yung conflict na to, yung personality kapag tumanda na tayo is most likely loving and caring tayo sa iba. And we have empathy. We will develop empathy as well and concern on the welfare of others. Okay, that is for adulthood. I think belong ako dyan ngayon. So now let's proceed to the last, old age, 65 up until death. So this is the conflict that is being transpired here is integrity versus despaired. So kapag na-resolve to, no, makaka-develop yung person ng wisdom. So in the old age, no, kapag tumanda na yung person, over time, yung personality traits will be having the sense of integrity or strong enough to withstand physical disintegration. So most likely yung person is ano na talaga siya, actualized na talaga siya, or yung integrity niya is very strong na. So kahit na tumanda siya, mag-deteriorate siya, ganyan. So tanggap niya yun. Hindi siya bothered, no? Kumbaga, part lang yun, or talagang na-withstand na niya yung ganong klaseng phase ng life. Okay. So, wala din siyang existential crisis, no? Tsaka clear sa kanya yung sarili niya. Okay. I believe that will be all. I would really require you and suggest to read the Book of Vice for you to really understand this theory. Thank you so much for listening and have a wonderful day. Goodbye.